Okay. Playlists. Um, Marriage restoration. I don't think so. Lord, where am I going to put this? Mm, Lord, I don't know where to put this. That's not a very good one. Do I put that with Henry Gerber? I don't know what I put. Prophecies of Donald Trump. Okay. Church restoration. Should I start with call Brian Price? That's fine.
Oh, let's get some fresh air.
The Trump administration coming under attack by Mad Dog Mattis and Joe Biden. The vice president had some thoughts on that. General Mattis came out and has said that the president of the United States is divisive, he's a bad guy. Where did that come from? Have you spoken to General Mattis about that?
I haven't spoken to General Mattis, but I can tell you he's wrong. But what this president has done in recent days is what every American expects a president to do in times of crisis. And that is put the lives and the property and the liberty of every American first. And when the president this Monday called on every governor to use their authority to call out their National Guard to bring law and order back to their streets, that's exactly what the American people would have us to do. And as we bring law and order, let's tell you, Jesse, the reports from around the country have been very encouraging. We've seen violence declining across the country. That's a credit to our extraordinary law enforcement community, a credit to more than 32,000 National Guard that have now been deployed across the country. But as we put this challenging time behind us, I really do believe we have an opportunity to come together as never before, to listen, to learn, to address the long-term inequities that many African American families have faced in our cities.
Joe Biden has emerged, and he's saying you guys are making things worse, and his campaign is bailing out rioters. How would you react to that?
I was astonished to hear that aides to Joe Biden's campaign were investing money to bail out people that had destroyed property, looted, engaged in rioting, and so marred what should have otherwise been peaceful protests in cities around the country. But I'm not surprised by it. I mean, the truth is that we see in Joe Biden a willingness to align himself with people that are rioting on the streets, destroying the property and livelihoods, claiming the lives of innocent civilians and law enforcement officers, and yet not speaking a word on behalf of those that have been victims. It's all a part of the predictable, divisive politics of the American left.
Lastly, everyone's looking forward to the Republican National Convention. Where is it going to be?
Well, I'll let the president make that announcement at the time of his choosing. But I will tell you, Jesse, we're disappointed that it couldn't be in North Carolina because Governor Roy Cooper would not work with the Republican National Committee and work out the arrangements for us to hold that historic event in Charlotte. President Trump is looking around the country as states across America are reopened, and places like Texas, Florida, and Georgia, other great states around the nation. And I'm very confident that we're gonna find the right venue. We're gonna bring Republicans together. We're gonna renominate President Donald Trump for 4 more years, and then we're gonna re-elect this president come November 3rd.
It's not uncool. Old Spice After Hours and jazz.
Damn, I'm for ultra smooth and handle sweat without all that jazz.
You're right, son.
America reeling after a week of violent demonstrations. So how do we move forward? I spoke with Vice President Mike Pence in Washington.
The death of George Floyd was a tragedy, and President Trump's made it clear. Justice will be served. Now charges have been brought against all 4 police officers, and the president immediately deployed Justice Department officials to examine the possibility of federal charges be brought as well. What happened on that street in Minneapolis shocked the conscience of the nation, and we stand with every American who's taken aback by that act, and we will stand for justice every day until it's achieved.
The black community is in a lot of pain right now. You're a man of faith. You've marched with civil rights leaders, Bloody Sunday anniversary. How are we going to go about healing this country?
Well, as the president said, we stand with all the peaceful protesters. And what's been so troubling is to see the way that the anarchists and criminals and even Antifa have infiltrated these protests to riot, to loot, bring violence against individuals and law enforcement personnel. The first order of business was to restore law and order. Going forward, we believe now it's time for us to have ears to hear, to listen carefully. I met with African American leaders here at the White House. I'll be traveling to a church nearby to listen to African American leaders, and also to listen to business owners whose livelihoods were impacted by some of the rioting and looting. I think it's important that we listen first, and then President Trump will do like he always does, and that is continue to lead on behalf of the security and the prosperity of every American. On that election night, President Trump made it clear that his aspiration was to be president of all of the American people. And when it comes to African Americans, I couldn't be more proud to be vice president to a president who oversaw the lowest unemployment rate ever recorded for African Americans, expanded opportunity zones to cities all across the nation by the thousands. $100 billion of investment are going into our inner cities, areas lacking jobs and opportunities. But as we go forward, it's incumbent upon all of us to listen with open hearts about ways that we can address some of the long-term challenges that minority communities and African Americans in our cities have faced, whether that be educational challenges, whether it be economic challenges, or healthcare. We're determined to do just that.
Some of these liberal politicians like Mayor Bill de Blasio won't protect his own city. There's a playbook for protecting it. He won't execute it. He's not letting people shop, but he's letting people loot. Why do you think that's happening?
To see places like Fifth Avenue, places that every American, even those of us from the heartland, know about. Legendary places where people come from all over the country and around the world, destroyed and looted. It's unacceptable. What the American people look to in leaders in times like this is first to respect all of our rights, and then to protect the lives and property of our citizens. When I see people, I'm talking about peaceful protesters that have come out by the thousands, it tells me, Jesse, that some of the long-term inequities in this country have been laid bare by the tragic death of George Floyd. And I promise you, building on our record for African Americans over the last 3.5 years, once we restore order in our streets, once we make sure that any families or businesses impacted are remedied through this, we're gonna listen very carefully. We're gonna offer an agenda that's going to truly offer not the failed Democrat policies of the last 50 years that have failed African Americans in many family-centered cities. We're going to offer a positive agenda and real results, and that's always the approach President Donald Trump takes.
The president left the White House, took a walk over to the church that had been burned the night before, and held the Bible up. It was a very powerful symbol for the country. What did that symbol represent to you personally?
What that said to me was that here in America, we will not tolerate burning churches, rioting and looting, or taking advantage of what would otherwise be peaceful protests to pursue criminal aims. The president strode across Lafayette Park and paid his respects at one of the most venerated churches in America to make that point. But he also took action. The president's decision to deploy the National Guard here in our nation's capital to ensure that here in the very seat of our democracy that we preserve the law and order that is necessary for a free society. You know, that our prosperity, our way of life depends on security, and it's the reason why the president took that decisive action. And also called on every governor in America to utilize their National Guard in a similar fashion. It's about protecting peaceful protesters. It's about protecting businesses in the areas where some of the rioting has taken place, looting, and ultimately it's about creating the conditions where Americans can express themselves in freedom and openness that we've always enjoyed through our history.
No American should ever die the way George Floyd died. The police officer who killed him looks like a dirty cop, a stone-cold killer and a coward. His off-duty boss at a nightclub said he had a small build and was intimidated by bigger black guys. He didn't like working on urban nights and would always call in for heavy backup and use pepper spray like crazy. Black Americans, all Americans, have a legit reason to protest. We've come a long way on race relations in this country, and there's still a long ways to go. But what happened the last 2 weeks isn't the way to go. A righteous protest was hijacked by criminals and domestic terrorists. George Floyd's family begged for the violence to stop, but the violence continued. Small business owners tried to protect their stores from looting mobs and were viciously attacked. It's important to see what's really going on, because the rest of the media is lying to you about how pure this so-called protest is. Innocent truck drivers are getting pulled over, pulled out of their big rigs and just beaten. St. Louis, a retired police captain, was guarding a store and was shot dead by looters. It was recorded on Facebook Live. And when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Remember? That's what the president said? He was right. The media barely covered this black American murdered doing his job. His name, David Dorn. Does a black life matter more when it's taken by a white police officer? Does a black life matter less when it's taken by another black man? The answer is that all black lives matter equally. Here are the actual facts.
Out of 10 million arrests, police officers were involved in fatal shootings 1,004 times. 1,004 times. 41 of those were unarmed people. The police shot unarmed people. 19 white people, unarmed, were shot and killed by police last year. Nine were black. 19 whites, 9 were black. There were 89 cops killed in this country in the line of duty last year. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's talking about the 82 people that were shot in Chicago last weekend in 48 hours.
The Wall Street Journal reports that a police officer is 18 times more likely to be killed by a black male than an unarmed black male is to be killed by a police officer. Now, I'm not trying to downplay what happened in Minneapolis, and I'm not challenging the feeling of black Americans who feel targeted and unfairly hassled and abused by police. And I'm acknowledging that there are problems with race and police in America. I just want to share the facts. And the facts are these. Everyone is being hurt by these violent mobs. You don't protest the abuse of an innocent person by abusing other innocent people.
How does that bothers me? You said Black Lives Matter. I work here part-time. Plus, I'm a part owner of this store. You said Black Lives Matter. Why don't you choke me? I'm black. Look what you did to my store.
Look what you did. The Democrats, big corporations, the media, all sucked up to the mob mentality, and they ransacked their buildings anyway. The mob vandalized the AFL-CIO, CNN headquarters, black, white, Asian, and Hispanic-owned businesses, rich neighborhoods, poor neighborhoods, churches, and war memorials. They vandalized the Gandhi statue in Washington. I mean, the Gandhi statue. You want to march in a movement with these people? They just want to destroy for the sake of destruction. Watch.
We're on your side! We're on your side! Holy we're on your side!
See what I mean? They just don't care. The media, they definitely don't care.
This is mostly a protest. It is not generally speaking unruly. The fires have been started.
Our country was started because this is how the Boston Tea Party, rioting. So do not get it twisted and think that, oh, this is something that has never happened before, and this is so terrible, and where are we, and these savages and all of that. This is how this country was started.
And please, show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Yeah, so, okay, they're just dumping tea in the water. Is that what they're doing? The guy's reporting, it says it's like a peaceful protest. There's fires in the background. I mean, that's fake news. Protests, yeah, they're supposed to be peaceful. And this is from the network that said, for the last 3 years, the rule of law must be upheld. But that's what the left always says, right? It's just selective application of the law, right? They're so twisted up, even Barack Obama disagrees with them. Here's the former president on the riots just a few years back.
When individuals get crowbars and start prying open doors to loot, they're not protesting. They're not making a statement. They're stealing. They're destroying and undermining businesses and opportunities in their own communities. My understanding is you've got some of the same organizers now going back into these communities to try to clean up in the aftermath of a handful of protesters, a handful of criminals and thugs who tore up the place.
Okay, so Obama's saying the same thing you and I are saying. But the media in 2020, they've just lost their minds. Even when journalists themselves are under assault.
As Fox News reporter is getting chased out by the George Floyd protesters here in front of Lafayette Park. Look, there's water being thrown on the reporter here. And look, this brother just took his mic. And they just threw the mic at the reporter here.
Demonstrators are now launching something that appears to be some sort of smoke grenade that they're throwing inside CNN Center right now. They're kicking it back out, guys. This is live happening in front of your eyes.
Americans died in the riots. Network News barely mentioned it. So I don't want to hear a thing about violent Trump supporters ever again. The left just torched and looted America for a full week. People died. Thousands injured. What did a Trump supporter do? I think he smirked at a man banging a drum. Remember that? Now, if the Tea Party was involved in beatdowns, crime sprees, and arson, the media would call it a civil war. If guys wearing MAGA hats were attacking cops, I have the feeling the libs would be calling the National Guard. If the lockdown protesters committed just 1% of the violence that the rioters did, they'd all be in jail. Remember how the media shamed the small, peaceful lockdown protests? But now they're gung-ho on the massive riots? Remember how getting sunburned at the beach was a threat to public safety? But burning whole cities now is allowed? Remember when Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer wouldn't let you leave the house? Now look at her. So much for social distancing. President Trump sent a strong message this week that America won't be intimidated by violent criminals. He visited the church next to the White House, the church that was burned the night before, and held the Bible up, a powerful symbol that sacred ground in America will be protected, and that law and order will be restored. Peaceful protesters were not tear gas so Trump could have a photo op. Those were all lies. The protesters weren't peaceful, no tear gas was used, and it wasn't a photo op. It was a message to America. These pathetic politicians are saying you can burn a church, but you can't go to church. Politicians shut down businesses and let them burn. You can loot, but you can't shop. That's not right. And now police are under attack. All over America. You see police officers getting things thrown at them, getting mowed down in the street. Police officers have been shot. They've been stabbed. The dangerous offspring of this movement is, are you ready for this? Defund the police. Watch.
Right now is the time to defund the police and really invest in our community.
Need to defund the police or abolish the police?
If you are not right now talking about defunding the police, and if you do not care about the platitudes that you have spouted off about Black Lives Matter.
Major cities are pushing for massive cuts in police departments in the midst of this mayhem. New York, LA, Phoenix, all proposing major cuts. So the cities are being burned and looted, businesses crippled, and the left wants police departments decimated. The only department protecting your family and your property from the mob. The American people don't want this. Look at this poll here. Blacks, whites, Hispanics. Everybody basically likes their local police department. It's like 70% of us do. It could be better, yeah. And we'll work on that. One of the reasons police reform is so hard are the unions. This police officer in Minneapolis, Derek Chauvin, had tons and tons of complaints against him. But basically no disciplinary action was taken because of police unions. Union regulations make it almost impossible to take action against dirty cops. There's been a lot of talk about systematic racism in America recently. There is preserved here. I would agree with that. But it's bigger than what you think it is. Systematic racism takes place in liberal cities. I explained this on the 5. Right, so let's talk about the inner city that are run by Democrats here. If you put affordable housing in the inner city, and then you send all the jobs overseas to China, and you let illegal immigrants come in and take the rest of the jobs, people can't work. And then people can't protect themselves because you make it very difficult for them to buy handguns. And then the only people that have the handguns are the criminals, and then you just get preyed upon and you can't defend yourself. And then the police come in and the police the area very aggressively, and anytime there's a bad apple, the union won't let you discipline the bad apple, and the police chief is in the pocket of the liberal mayor, and then the liberal mayor says you can't send your son and daughter to a better school, and then every election they blame white Republicans that don't even live in the city and don't control any of the levers of power, and that's how the game's played. I'm beginning to think that Democrats are just going to accuse Republicans of being racist for the next 50 years. Just like they did the last 50, so they can scare black voters to vote against them and prey on white guilt. Here's what some of that looks like.
Why are you guys removing Black Lives Matter's graffiti?
Where are you trying to take him? Yeah, we tried over there and it wasn't coming off. It's still close coming off.
But so you don't care about Black Lives then?
No.
Not at all, right?
That's what this...
Personally, we cared about one time.
Not enough to leave up a message.
The world's upside down. When it's racist for people to clean up graffiti. Last 2 weeks was an explosion. The lockdown kept a lot of energy inside, but it's out now. And liberal mayors let it rage. Liberal mayors control their police departments. If you can't protect your city, you're either a coward or complicit, or straight up stupid.
That's right.
So the media and the Democrats are exploiting the violent protests, capitalizing on the energy because they know Sleepy Joe can't excite the base. The left needs to divide us for clicks and for cash. The powerful do it to distract and pander so they stay rich writing all the rules. But the rest of us, you have to pick up the pieces. This movement is killing innocent people, committing crimes and looting and attacking cops, and expecting America to say, you're right, this is a movement that deserves respect. You think the American people are going to trust the movement after what we just witnessed? People are going to move out of the cities and buy guns. I'm sorry. Some of us are trying to move forward. But I'm afraid we just got set back.
So rapid fire changes to police departments in Minneapolis, Buffalo, other big cities. Let's discuss the push to defund the police with Fox News contributor and Wall Street Journal columnist Jason Rowley. Good to have you back, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to start off by referencing a piece you wrote earlier this week in the Wall Street Journal that you talked about the
Probably not. No. Oh, I don't want to see that. No. Well.
Science fiction movies I'd watch as a child. Soylent Green, The Omega Man, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and wondered how could that happen? Is it caused by overpopulation, lack of resources, Cocoa Pebbles? I assumed our society was too rich and resourceful for anything like that to happen. I was wrong. To say these are weird times is like saying Rome around 476 AD was weird times. The purge occurred, and sorry, Hollywood scriptwriters, it didn't come from some autocratic right-winger. No Stephen King, Cher, and anyone else snorting horse tranquilizers behind a gated community who thought Trump was Hitler. It was actually your side. The purge happened when left-wing Dems endorsed the envy of those who would ruin us. Cuomo, de Blasio, Newsom, CNN. The purge was sponsored by its leftist enablers. Yes, the ones in charge, educated in the finest universities, where the logic of coercive power and grievance is the language of success. They run the mob. Before, if a young person wanted success, you'd focus on hard work. Now, you focus on grievance. What's he got, and why don't I have it? I'm gonna take it. And as the violence unfolded, we saw the disconnect between the horrifying actions and its coverage. In the daytime, you saw camera crews in front of peaceful crowds working from the same damn script. But at night, after they said, wow, we really nailed it, chaos reigned. And that's where the lone non-journalists on Twitter did the work. They filmed the beatdowns of the terrified, the torching of buildings owned by minorities, the attacks on police, the stuff CNN and the New York Times wanted to keep hidden in the darkness. If you paid attention early on, you knew the madness was growing because you saw not just the violence, but the encouragement of violence, the desire to save your hide by supporting the mob. Which brings us to some comic relief.
Why are you on your side? We're on your side! Holy we're on your side!
We're on your side. Never send a candy-ass appeasement signal to people who hate you. That video should be in the Smithsonian. Label it Emasculation Studies. In second place, you got sports reporter Chris Palmer. He tweeted, "Burn it all down," as low-income housing was torched. Then he called the cops when looters reached his gated community. What a loser. All this is brought to you by liberal government and the media that cradles it. First, the media shows only protests, hiding the violence. Since the harm undermines their narrative. But in an honest moment, you can get them to admit that when violence comes, it was okay.
Too many see the protests as the problem. No, the problem is what forced your fellow citizens to take to the streets. Show me where it says that protests are supposed to be polite and peaceful.
Who says protests have to be peaceful? Say that to the black man who watched his business burn down, or the immigrant facing his boarded-up deli. Cuomo's social justice karaoke won't feed their kids. Then there's his brother who tweeted this as New York City burned. There are those who want to intentionally blur the lines between peaceful, legitimate protesters and looters. The president is among them. They want you to watch the videos of the lootings, not the video of Mr. Floyd being murdered. Don't fall for it. So as New York implodes, its governor thinks the biggest problem is people seeing the implosion. the death, the mayhem, the desecration of Mr. Floyd's memory. Like this video of David Dorn, a retired 77-year-old police chief who bled to death after being shot by looters. I'm sorry, I meant unpeaceful protesters. Please don't watch, because you might blur the lines between peaceful protests and looters. But who is blurring the lines? It's those who accuse you of demeaning protesters when you're pleading for help to stop the violence. And that allows cities to burn because it makes it impossible to stop the mob if you continue to deny it exists. Take this, bozo.
We didn't. Not need, nor do we think it's wise for the National Guard to be in New York City. People who could be very, very unnerved by the dynamics that our police officers have learned to work with and deal with, that is a dangerous scenario.
What does that even mean? Plus, he hates the police he's talking about, and man, do they despise him. Because he'd rather stay on the mob side than protect their victims. And so, by not admitting there's a distinction between protest and pandemonium, it leaves the citizens with no recourse but to protect themselves. A peace to keep the peace. The left did more to end gun control than the NRA could ever do. I saw my neighborhood destroyed. Then it got peaceful. It's the curfew, the media said. No, it's because there's nothing left to steal. The victim was left bloody and unconscious, pockets out with nothing left to loot. As the looters were sprung the next day. And why? The government fears the media more than the mob. So you become the scapegoat, the sacrificial lamb to the slaughter. Credit decades of grievance politics, decades of cities run by corrupt Democrat machines, decades of media fanning racial division, decades of romanticizing radicalism and smearing the American system, decades of hating you. It now came to fruition, the purge. And it went off without a hitch, as it will next year and the year after that, until we say stop. And by we, I mean Americans, not black, white, or Asian Americans, all Americans. Because this isn't a race problem, it's our problem. And when we make it our problem, we can solve it. As it stands, the new explanation is systemic racism, a phrase the system uses to keep the discord in place. Think about it. Discrimination is illegal. Every company has a diversity office. They die to hire a qualified minority. We've had a black president
was good what he was sharing. 36% uploaded. Oh shoot. Boy, that's not it. Boy, that's gonna take an off. I should have minimized it. Man, it's too big to be putting up there. I could have put it through that. Made a little smaller video. Darn it. You can't pause it. That's the problem. So. Oh well. brushing my teeth. Did she take it all? Drank the whole thing up without me knowing? This is what happens. It's chilly. It's chilly. Oh, I gotta take that. Now I find out I don't get cranberry juice. It's too late to get it. I cannot believe it's gone. There's no way to drink all the cranberry juice. That's what she did. She drank the whole thing up. She comes here and does those kind of things. Saturday they're not. Oh, I mean, I don't want to run way over there just to get cranberry juice, darling. Hours for Nature's Fair in Langley. Oh, it's open till 9 p.m. So I can still go and get some. I cannot believe it. You're not allowed to have it, that's all there is to it. Okay, let's put on Roku. It is sick what's out there. It's really sick. There's nothing up there. I want to go to Fox News. No, not Fox News. Not at all Fox News. Fox News YouTube, maybe. I don't know. Might be worth going there. corrupt from the pit of hell. He's not going to go anywhere. I can guarantee he's not going to get anywhere. He's a fool. He's really a goon.
Well, former Vice President Joe Biden, well, he now has enough delegates to secure the Democratic nomination. Today's electoral victory occurred in Guam. That put Mr. Biden over the mark of the 1,991 delegates that he needs to be the Democratic nominee. His campaign is now setting its sights on the Democratic convention that is supposed to start on August 17th in Milwaukee. It's still unclear if the party will be able to hold that event in person because of concerns about the coronavirus. North Carolina has raised issues about holding the Republican convention in Charlotte, which may or may not happen down there. Arthel?
I don't think there's much to know there. I'd rather go to Israeli news. See what's happening in Israel news.
TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations. Shalom, good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem. And in today's top stories, the Israeli Air Force reportedly targets Iranian-funded precision-guided missile factories in Syria. Russia and the Islamic Republic of Iran have separately condemned the European Union over its decision to extend sanctions against the Syrian regime and its supporters. A shift in the power balance in conflict-ridden Libya has seemingly intensified the influx of arms shipments to the country's warring parties by their respective international backers. Unidentified aircraft targeted a number of warehouses in Syria's western Hama governorate, an aerial attack which the Damascus regime quickly attributed to the Israeli Air Force. Intelligence sources confirmed to TV7 that around 9:20 p.m., a number of missiles were launched from the direction of Lebanon's airspace toward warehouses situated near the Syrian village of Al-Zawi, which is located near the city of Masyaf. Syria's aerial defense array was activated, yet failed to intercept the attack due to a significant qualitative gap between the interceptors and the incoming projectiles. As a result, a number of warehouses, which were believed to operate as Iranian-funded production factories of medium-range precision-guided missiles, were utterly destroyed. And while the Damascus regime insisted that only material damage was caused, the London-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that at least 9 individuals were killed, 4 of whom were identified as Syrian nationals. The reported casualty count is expected to rise, however, as a number of individuals, which are Iranian-backed militiamen, sustained critical injuries. It is important to mention that the targeted location had been subject to previous aerial bombardments, which were also attributed to the Israeli Air Force. The last reported attack in the area of Maysaf occurred less than 2 months ago, when more than 14 Iranian and proxy fighters were killed when a similar center for the development of precision-guided missiles was destroyed. The IDF spokesperson's unit refused to confirm nor deny to TV7 its alleged responsibility. Now to another yet related matter. Russia and the Islamic Republic of Iran have separately condemned the European Union over its decision to extend sanctions against the Syrian regime and its supporters by 1 year in light of the continued oppression of Syria's civilian population by Damascus authorities. Following the EU Council's decision, EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell stressed that the EU is determined to continue its support to the Syrian people and remains committed to use every tool at its disposal to push for a political solution to the conflict that would benefit all Syrians and put an end to the ongoing repression. Borrell accused the Syrian regime and its supporters for the suffering of the Syrian population and underscored that EU sanctions target those responsible and those who finance and benefit from the war economy. It is important to mention, however, that the European Union removed from its sanctions list 2 persons and 1 company, which, according to Brussels, halted their sanctionable behavior. Meanwhile, in light of the European decision, Moscow condemned Brussels for what it claimed to be a disappointing decision that seeks to follow the unilateral policies of the United States.
В то же время вызывает разочарование, что в конце мая Евросоюз вслед за США принял решение о продлении односторонних санкций против Сирии. Не раз указывали, что подобные рестрикции не только калечат сирийскую экономику, но и препятствуют закупке жизненно важных лекарств, медицинского оборудования, гуманитарных товаров. Заявленные изъятия, заявленные вейверы, как сейчас модно говорить, на деле не работают, сильно забюрократизированы, и, собственно, это подтверждают работающие в Сирии гуманитарщики.
Separately, Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi also condemned the European Union for its decision to extend its sanctions regime against Damascus. Iran referred to the European decision as an illegally urged Brussels to lift all of its sanctions against Syria. Turning now to the Libyan front, where shift in the power balance in the conflict-ridden country has seemingly intensified the influx of arms shipments to the country's warring parties by their respective international backers. After a year of consecutive gains by the eastern-based Libyan National Army, or LNA, under the command of Khalifa Haftar, its western-backed rival, the Libyan Government of National Accord in Tripoli, or GNA, under the leadership of Fayez al-Sarraj, managed to shift the power balance on the ground in its favor after Turkey significantly bolstered its qualitative military edge with shipments of advanced unmanned aerial vehicles. The conflict immediately shifted in favor of the GNA, which managed to end a year-long siege on the country's capital, Tripoli.
نطارد حاليا الفلول جنوب غريان حيث لم يبق له من معاقله المهمة سوى ترهونة، وبطرده من ترهونة ستصبح مناطق جنوب طرابلس معزولة تماما، ونعلم جيدا الطريقة التي سنتعامل بها معهم. وعموما فقد اتبعت قواتنا معها سياسة القضم في الأيام الأخيرة وجردتها من أهم تحصيناتها، ولم يبق لها أكثر من 35% من المناطق التي تمركزت فيها سابقا.
The recent gains by the Turkish-backed GNA, however, have triggered a massive influx of heavy weaponry to the Russian, Egyptian, and United Arab Emirates-backed LNA, raising prospects for intensified and much more destructive battles in the near future. The referred to shipments include, among others, Russian-made Pantsir's S-1E surface-to-air missile systems, which are capable of downing the Turkish-deployed drones. Naturally, these newly introduced heavy weaponry have infuriated the Turkish-backed GNA. It immediately sought to blame the European Union's Mediterranean naval operation Irini for seemingly failing to enforce an UN arms embargo on the war-torn country.
ومع هذه الانهيارات هناك رحلات شحن جوي تصل إلى قواعد حفتر الخلفية قادمة من مطارات الإمارات وسوريا محملة بالذخائر والعتاد العسكري في تواطؤ علني من عملية إيرني التي تزعم أنها ستطبق حظر الأسلحة استنادا إلى قرارات مجلس الأمن الذي اشترط التنسيق مع حكومة الوفاق الوطني.
It is important to know that the stakes of the involved international powers are fiscally significant, as both the GNA and LNA have separately pledged to grant their international backers a substantial share from the vast resources believed to be in the country's Mediterranean exclusive economic zone, a fact openly acknowledged by Turkey, which once again vowed to bolster its support to the Tripoli-based government of national accord.
Bu çerçevede Doğu Akdeniz'deki doğal zenginliklerden fayda ve sondaj dahil işbirliğimizi ilerletmeyi hedefliyoruz. Ayrıca Libya topraklarındaki işbirliğimizi veya işbirliği alanlarımızı da genişletme hususunda görüş birliğine vardık.
After Ankara signed a maritime boundary treaty with Tripoli, which effectively carved a significant portion of the Mediterranean Sea into two, Turkey has been preparing to launch offshore gas exploration within...
Oh, I'm sure it's junk from him, and I'm not going to pay attention.
You have 3 new voice
Shut up.
Message deleted. New message, 10:57 a.m.
Yes, Bill. I need prayer. I had another seizure and almost died.
To replay this message, press 1. To go to the previous message, press 1. To pause during message playback, press 2. To fast forward a message during playing, press 3. To hear this message and the time it was delivered, press 5. To copy this message to another person, message deleted. New message, 7:40 p.m.
Hi, Dave. It's Dennis Paul Strashuk here calling. I'm calling about Saturday about 20 to 8 in the evening. Just calling to say that I have some news for you concerning Jim Dawson. If you'd like to get back to me on that, you can call me at 604-255-7944. Thank you.
To replay this message, press 1. To go to the previous message, press 1. To pause during message playback, press 2. To fast forward a message during playing, press 3. To hear this message and the time it was delivered, press 5. To copy this message to another person. New message, 7:40 p.m.
Hi, Dave. It's Dennis Paul Strashuk here calling. I'm calling about Saturday about 20 to 8 in the evening. Just calling to say that I have some news for you concerning Jim Dawson. If you'd like to get back to me on that, you can call me at 604-255-7944. Thank you.
To replay this message, press 1. To go to the previous message, press 1. To pause during message playback.
Oh, wow. Don't tell me he passed away. Wow. He must have. I'll have to get back to him on the mark pretty soon. I was gonna brush my teeth, but there's no crap brushes, so I guess I'll find it later. Do you know? Took the whole thing and never told me a thing about it. She realizes I brushed my teeth on the way. Oh, jeez. Yeah. I gotta check and see if it's in person. Trying to brush my teeth. I can't see the encoded story. She could put it. Number 604-255-7945. kind of like to get my teeth brushed first, Lord, and before I do all this stuff and just be out of this. Just brush your teeth with the soap and get it done. 'Cause I'm not going to wait for that to come. It's ridiculous. It's definitely not there. If it's there, it would show me where it is, because I will see it. Not there. Not down there. I can't see it anywhere. And that's what I use to brush my teeth with. It's gone. first, or else I won't have any to brush my teeth with later on tomorrow. I don't want to end up rushing down there. I might talk with him for a long time. Besides, there's so I will get back to tonight, but not right away.
In Libya's exclusive economic zone. Nevertheless, in light of the growing involvement from Russia and other regional powers, Turkey has delayed its exploration plans for about 3 to 4 months.
Fatih Karadeniz'e gidiyor ama kimse sanmasın ki Akdeniz'deki faaliyetlerimize ara veriyoruz. Biliyorsunuz geçtiğimiz yılın sonlarında Libya ile deniz yetki alanlarımızın belirlenmesine ilişkin bir mutabakat anlaşması yapmıştık. Bu kapsamda Türkiye Petrolleri kendi ruhsat alanlarımızda petrol aramak için Maden ve Petrol İşleri Genel Müdürlüğü'ne başvuruda bulundu. Askı ve eylem sürecinin ardından önümüzdeki 3-4 ay içerisinde buradaki ilk faaliyetlerimize de başlamış olacağız inşallah.
It is important to highlight that the Turkish side, both Cyprus and Greece, which reject it as illegal and geographically absurd amid their own claims to the territorial waters. Moreover, Turkey and Libya control of the zone could hinder development of Israeli, Cypriot, and Greek gas pipeline. Potential implications for Europe, the United States, Egypt, and Israel. Now, in other news, Norway has frozen more than half of its pledged aid to the Palestinian Education Ministry this year and has conditioned the immediate change to the content of the Palestinian textbooks, which are believed to promote terrorism. This is the first time that Norway, the Palestinian Authority, after the parliament in Oslo defined the Palestinian curriculum as ruinous for the advancement of the peace process between Israel and the Palestinians. The Norwegian measure comes at the heels of a separate decision by the European Union's parliament last week, which officially condemned the apparent incitement against Israel in the new Palestinian Authority's educational curriculum. Thank you for watching us. As part of TV7's Global Prayer Initiative, I would like to encourage you today to join myself and the team here in Jerusalem to pray for the salvation and peace of Saudi Arabia, alongside our ongoing prayers for all those who are impacted by the corona contagion worldwide. I would like to also take this opportunity to thank all of our partners, as your dedicated support by means of especially prayer as well as finance allows us to serve you productions.
Or should I go now and grab that cranberry juice? I don't have stuff for brushing my teeth because she bring it all. Boy, what a thing. Oh, just see how it's doing on there. Where it's got to. It's just, oh, it's 76%. That's good. That's good. But it's not anywhere near as good as the first message I gave her. I'm saddened about that. I wanted to give a powerful message then. Okay. Okay, I'm going to phone up Dennis now. Two 255-7944. Hello, Dennis. It's Dave Thompson. Yes.
Oh, hi, Dave. Hi, Dave.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I think you're on my mass email, aren't you? That I sent out
I got one
the
in
rare
April.
occasion. Yeah.
I got one in April, but I haven't looked at it lately, so I don't know if I got another one or not. So.
Yeah, I'm going to send out one pretty soon on things. But as far as how I'm doing quite well. The cancer I got is pretty well not noticeable. They have a very powerful non-chemo drug that's very effective against it. It pretty well wipes it out. So I don't even, excuse just sneezing. So I don't really even notice that I have cancer and even feel stronger than I used to on doing my workouts and running and all that. So, it's, I still believe God can heal me, so I don't need the drug, and yet I'm thankful for a discovery where there's very little side effects. It does depress the immune system, increase hypertension and all that, but I don't seem to be getting much of that. So, yeah, but I know that I should be asking how you're doing. And of course, you were phoning about Jim, so I assume something quite major has happened.
I've been keeping in touch with him, but over the last couple of months, I was not in touch with him so much. I was just keeping in touch by phone.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of months ago, he informed me that he had a lung condition, and he asked me to pray for him, and I was in prayer quite a bit for him. And so he moved into a bigger house with his family, his wife's family.
Oh yeah.
And they offered him a drug which would have been very expensive. He decided against it.
Oh.
And now, as of last Tuesday, he's passed.
Wow. So he did go into glory. Wow.
Yes, he did. His wife said he was in good spirits. He was in prayer and singing. Even just prior to going to be with the Lord.
Oh,
right?
that's wonderful.
I think the major problem was his body was not getting enough oxygen. He was getting blue hands and blue tongue, she said, and other things.
Oh wow.
But certainly wouldn't have wanted to go into the hospital. That would have just made it worse.
Oh wow. So he stayed at home when he passed
Yeah, he
away.
stayed at home, yeah.
Oh wow. Well, that's a surprise. I just say it's one of the best books I've read in my life, called Imagine Heaven. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I think I have, yeah.
Yeah, there's sure. Boy, when you read that, you hardly want to stay here. Yeah, so it's a very encouraging book in that regard. So, who wrote the book? Let's see, his name. I'm trying to bring it to mind right now. I can easily tell you because I have it on my phone. I read it on my phone mostly. I'm just noticing it. My phone. Okay, I'll just tell you right now quickly. Simply just go to where the Kindle app is and tell you, because that's my book, right? I forgot. I just got to tap this here's.
Yeah.
But, oops, double tap, I guess. No. Anyhow, he was once an unbeliever, and he was converted to Christ. I can look it up just by typing into Google here, Imagine Heaven, and it'll bring him up right away on.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll own, but
yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean,
yeah.
We've kind of fallen out of touch, right? I've had some dreams about you and your prayer warrior, that's for sure.
Yeah.
In my dreams, you're praying up a storm.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. Well, I'm pretty consistent at praying in the morning for an hour and a half each day. That's what I love to do.
Right, yeah.
And I do pray now before I go to bed as well, for at least 15 minutes or more. Yeah, just depends.
That's good, yeah.
A great blessing in praying before I go to bed that I was missing in the rest. Wish I would have done earlier in my life. But praying and mainly praying. So yeah, it's interesting. You've had dreams. So if you feel the
I had the dream that I was going through fire and you were praying me through it, so I covered your prayers, brother.
Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. Wow. So how you been doing?
Well, it's been up and down, but I had kind of set me back quite a ways.
Oh, 3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, it was 2 years ago in June at this time.
Wow.
Actually, my brother-in-law and my housing worker were with me at the time, otherwise I could have been in real trouble.
Oh, wow. Well, I'm
They
glad you...
called 911 immediately, and they took me to the hospital, and when I came to, they had me in a big sling because I put on a lot of weight at that time,
Oh, I see.
and did a CAT scan on me,
Yeah.
and they eventually came out clean, but they increased my anti-seizure.
Oh, okay.
So I'm on an anti-seizure medication. I'm on a few medications, for schizophrenia and seizure and so on.
Right.
And I'm in touch with the care team all the time. I have to go in for my regular appointments.
Uh-huh.
That was a condition of my release from the hospital at that time, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And my devotional life, well, it comes and goes. It's sporadic. Sometimes I have more energy, sometimes less. Of course, when I had that seizure, it was kind of a wake-up call for me there.
Yeah, it would be. Wow.
So I went through a period where when I was hospitalized, I quit smoking for 3 months.
Uh-huh.
But eventually I went back to it, but
Yeah.
that's a tough one, I know.
Yeah, well, everyone's different in that area as to their struggle with coping mechanisms that they find help them. Yeah. So that's interesting. I'm glad you called because it'll spike me into praying more for you now because it's been a while, right? And it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean the Holy Spirit hasn't brought you to my mind and I haven't prayed for you, but it hasn't been, to be honest, that often. It's been here and there. But But I'm glad that you did call, and just for fellowship too, but also for letting me know about Jim and that situation. But for yourself, I guess you're still having fellowship with them now, and I'm not really, except I haven't told you about this lady in my life that's been I don't know how much, or if you know anything about that.
I think I read something in the email that you had sent in the email, right?
Oh, okay. Well, just in case you didn't know, just to give you a rough outline without detail, basically, some time ago, I don't know if it's 7 years ago or 6 years ago or what, but she was living nearby here with another guy, and I met her in one of the meetings I was going to where there was this fellow, Larry Plumon, that has a prophetic ministry, and found out they lived nearby, and then I found out she was kind of a bit mentally deficient in certain ways, but attracted to me, but I didn't like the redhead. Still has her red hair, even though she's almost my age. She doesn't have a gray hair; she's all red. But very, quite a temper and can really yell at you and things and fly off the handle and all that, But anyhow, to make a long story short, the guy that she's with had bipolar, and at the time she thought the economy was going to crash because Larry and others were into all this. Not Hal Lindsey, some other guy by the last name Lindsey, warning about economic, and so she got panicked and decided to move out. And then I didn't know she has 7 brothers, 7 sisters, and so all this stuff was in there from who knows, from her other she had tons of junk all over in a whole room filled to the top. So anyhow, she was left. The guy took off on her, and she was left with no one to move her out in time.
Oh, I see.
So I had to spend a bunch of money to destroy all her stuff and take it valuable. And Larry and some others helped move and got her into Abbotsford. But to make a long story short, all these years, she became more and more involved with me, and has all these problems with her health. Like she's got a degenerated hip from a car accident, and she can't get her operation right now. I'm the one that refused it for some time, thinking that stem cell regeneration was better. But anyhow, to make a long story short, so now she made her place such a mess because she was in pain with the hip, and because she's a bit out of it in some ways mentally, though she's quite intelligent in other ways, that it was so messy, it was up to my knees and crap everywhere. I could never even clean it up. And then she was in such a state when this COVID-19 came that I let her stay over here, and I didn't want it, but she was in such a state that no one was there but me to help her, and I felt like if I didn't help her, so it was a difficult situation. And so she's been here with me now for a couple of months, and we've never held hands, even kissed or looked at each other, and that's not easy because I am tempted towards her physically, because she is attractive in some significant enough measure to me, even though in some ways she's. And I'm saying, God, why do you bring such a woman in my life? It's such a problem. And she yells at me and everything else. And then we yell at each other. And then the next moment we're calm and it's like nothing happened. Like we're little kids that don't get offended. But it's really crazy and difficult for me. And so I've asked people to pray. And I told them right before God, it's not a testimony to others that I have some woman with me. I said, you got to go back to your place. Even if you decide to marry me, or if I decided to marry you, it wouldn't happen by you staying here. You got to be away from me, and then it would happen if it was God's will. But I doubt it. But the thing is, because I can't see myself having a woman that's kind of rebellious and argumentative, and yet she loves God and she prays and does all this stuff, but she's got some. It's a long story. So you get the she left her husband 30 years ago. 2 of her sons were killed in an accident. She's only got 1 son that's alive. They're all back east, and she doesn't want to go back with her husband. Left him 30 years ago because he was unfaithful to her and is very worldly, though he claims to be a Baptist. And so it's just a real difficult situation for me. So she's away right now for 2 days. Because she's got 7 sisters, and one of them is here, and she decided to go back to a place that's a mess. And so that's why I'm just praying that that'll all work out in life to purify me. It's certainly done a work of purification.
Yeah.
It's been because it's so many times that she doesn't do it on purpose, but sometimes she lifts her legs up and she doesn't know that I'm seeing her sexual organs. And or another time she'll bend a certain way and her breasts will show, and little things like that get to me, and then I have to ask God to forgive me. But God's done a work where He's made me, purified me through that, so that I'm more disciplined to possess my vessel in sanctification and honor. But so that's what's going on, and I don't want to overdo it. And then there's the cancer, and that's.
Yeah, actually, I should tell you, I was diagnosed with chronic lymphoid leukemia at one point myself.
Oh, is that right?
And it never did get into my lymph glands, but it was only my blood cells, high white blood.
That's right. That's what I got.
And they never did give me any treatment for it, but it went away on its own. That's what they told me. So.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, even with the one I got, which is chronic lymphocytic leukemia, which sounds like the same one you got, it was caught later when I had some really big lumps on me, especially under one of my armpits. I thought it was something else, and so did the doctor initially, but my anti-aging doctor. But anyhow, that's all gone with this drug. It's really incredibly powerful.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah.
But I am praying that. There was a time when I felt bloating in my stomach and pressure in my head, and it was very uncomfortable. But that's all gone. So that's all I can say about that. I will be sending out a video that I'm uploading right now on my book that I'm publishing, as well as on the cancer. I just put up the electronic version of the book.
On Amazon, right?
Yeah, Amazon Kindle, called God, Headship, and Body Invasion, and I'm offering it for free for 6 days. So the Tuesday will be the last day one can get it for free on your phone to read. So, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's called God, Headship, and
platform, right?
yeah, it has to be in Canada because it won't work on your phone if it's from the States. But
I see.
so you go to Amazon.ca Kindle, and then you, of course, if you live in the States, it'll work. But now that was my experience 2 years ago. Maybe that's changed now. But so yeah, if you type in God, Headship, and Body Invasion, it will come up, or my name probably. Yeah, you can get it free and see what I wrote in there if you feel so led. But,
well, I don't have Kindle, but I've got access to YouTube, so I have looked at some of your videos on YouTube, right?
oh, okay. Yeah, good. Yeah, so I am praying that soon this COVID-19 will be over, and then there will be a powerful awakening in the new order that doesn't limit the fullness of the headship of Christ. I do believe the local church movement and all that in the past, what was missing in it was the fear of God. There wasn't the reverence, there wasn't the awe, there wasn't the awareness. So much of Christ in our midst is us being excited with one another about Christ. I'm not saying that it wasn't there, but I feel that was probably what was destroying the individuality aspect of things in that movement.
Right,
where there tended to become like a bunch of bricks instead of individual stones becoming a beautiful mosaic.
I agree with that, yeah.
But I'm certainly glad to hear from you, and I suppose, I don't know if you're getting fellowship with other believers, but during this time, I'm not actually, to be honest, because even the big Christian Life Assembly Church here, which I go to on Sunday morning just because it's closed, they're not having meetings because of this COVID-19, right? So, yeah.
I'm not getting a lot of fellowship. There's a sister I keep in touch with.
Good.
And then there's my family, right?
That's good.
Natural family, of course, I mean, right?
Right.
I've got my sister in Deep Cove and her husband, and they've been quite supportive of me at times, although they see things in their own way, right?
Right, yeah.
So, I mean, when I was hospitalized, they were visiting me every day, just about, so.
Wow.
So they were quite on the ball about that, right?
That was good. For sure. That's great. Yeah, so. Well, I'm mindful that Jim is in heaven, and I know from reading that book, Imagine Heaven, I know that he can actually see what we're doing if he so chooses in heaven, according to the records of thousands of people that have given their story of what they experienced in heaven. So I don't know how many out of those thousands he put together in that book, but apparently there's a hill in heaven where people can go if they want and watch what's going on the earth.
Oh yeah.
I mean, there's some details in there that are quite amazing and hard to believe, but I don't doubt it myself that it's true. They say that the landmass is 40 times greater than the landmass of the earth.
Oh wow.
That the New Jerusalem would make Mount Everest look like a little bump on the foot of the, the city.
Right.
it's on a hill that you walk up. There is those enormous gates, and there's many details that are described. Apparently when you go through the gate, it's quite a thick wall, and there's different stations going through the gate even where things about your life are somehow revealed through books or whatever. I forgot the details of everything, but it's just, it's so wonderful and amazing that, you know, I could talk for hours about what I read in that book probably. About
There was a book I read that quite impressed me. It was called Through Gates of Splendor. I don't know if you ever heard of that one.
it's a nice title and it sounds familiar, so maybe.
Yeah, it was written by a woman who was on her deathbed for a long time, and she experienced leaving her body and going into heavenly places. So.
Wow. Yeah, so in heaven, there's sometimes heavenly hosts singing, because you can walk or you can float slowly, instant thought, and be anywhere. And you can have a body of light that's like white garments, and the light emanates the whole testimony of your life to others. But then you have what's like a password, like if you don't want them to know you intimately, then you don't give them the password. But if you want them to know you intimately, you let them into your life and they can read everything about you. I mean, there's many things that were described. You can actually wear ordinary clothes as well, but a lot of people like to just have their robes of light. And there's heavenly hosts that are in tremendous harmony in the heavens singing, and then in the valley below there's enormous harmony as it's harmonizing with what's happening up above, and there's children dancing and playing and pets, and there's trees that are 2,000 feet tall. And you go up on the tree and you can pick the fruit, and it's such a wonderful taste in your mouth it immediately dissolves, and the fruit immediately comes back on the tree. I mean, there's just many things that are described, and I can't, you know, but the most amazing thing is that there is no light from the sun. It's all, the light is coming out of everything, and there's no shade, but the light that's coming out of everything emanates love, and the source of the light is love. And they say that when you go into the very holy presence of God in the New Jerusalem, where there's miles and miles of people worshiping God, I think it's 10 kilometers across or something, I forgot the details, and it's about 150 miles wide or something, and high. I forget how many miles, where the glory of God is abiding on the throne there. But anyhow, they say that the love is so great when you look in the eyes of Jesus that you don't want to ever leave. It's so attractive looking into the eyes of Jesus because of the love that's coming out, and there's light coming out of that too, that you don't want to, you want to stay there all the time. But apparently in heaven people are bustling and they're doing all kinds of wonderful creative things. It's not a place where you're not doing creative things. Some people describe a lot of bustle going on where people are busy doing all kinds of wonderful things that they enjoy. So I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, I read so much in that book I wouldn't want to overdo it, but so I think Jim is in a very wonderful place, and
Yes, he is. Yeah.
and look forward to meeting him someday. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, he was in good spirits, and he was preparing himself. I knew he was preparing
Oh,
himself.
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, they lived in an apartment. He and his wife lived in an apartment themselves.
Yeah.
But when he got this diagnosis, he decided to move into a larger home with her family.
Yeah. Right.
So she had the support should anything happen to him, right?
Yeah. Right.
So he's quite concerned about her.
Oh yeah, I can understand that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and the same with Margaret here, the redhead girl I have. I'm very concerned for her because she's got this hip problem. She needs her teeth replaced. She's in pain with her teeth, and her mind is not that good for memory either. It's really kind of bad. But so, and yet she's, you know, really effervescent, nice person in many ways. But you know, what can I say? I'm just going to let God work things out with her, and God will confirm what He's wanting between her and me. But anyhow, yeah. So be encouraged.
So Dave, do you mind if I call you once in a while just to keep in touch? And
Not at all. Not at all.
Just to give you news when someone's departed from us.
Yeah, of course. No, you can call me as you feel. So that I do have some people call me that have some real problems, and they're always begging for money, and I just don't have the money to give them.
No, I'm not in that situation.
I know that's not your. I wasn't even inferring that, but so I want you to know I do answer the phone, and I have helped these people out, although that's been difficult. But I don't have a lot of money or anything to help them, so I'm concerned about all of that too. But I'm doing business on the internet that could bring in some good money in the next short while, so we'll see what happens. I've got that book published up there now in electronic format.
Is it going to be a hard copy of that book, like a hard copy as well as it just
Well, the paperback is a paperback because in Amazon they don't produce the hard paperback.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it is a paperback.
Yeah, paperback. I mean, like, it won't be Kindle only. It'll be available as paperback.
Oh yeah, it's in. I put up the paperback quite a bit earlier because I had such a hard time learning all the software from Adobe Cloud to convert it from print form to others was quite a process of taking courses on the internet through lynda.com and learning how to. I finally, after a lot of work, figured out how to get it into being an electronic ebook. So actually, it's easier just to get software. It's inexpensive to create an ebook than to go through the professional software of a printed version and then try to convert it to an ebook. Way easier. Better to do the ebook first and then convert it to a printed format. You don't need the professional stuff. As far as I'm concerned, it's not very professional.
Right.
It's too messed up, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyhow, yeah. So we'll look forward to talking again, and certainly I'll be mindful of you more in prayer now. That's for sure.
Okay, and I've been keeping you in my prayers when I remember and when I don't have a strong prayer life, but I do have some prayers at times. So.
Yeah, well, I got to be delivered from religious duty too. I can get, that's it. Our relationship isn't based on following, a schedule. But I should tell you that my mom's still alive, and she's in the in the care home here in Langley because my two brothers and sisters were so keen about selling the home, so that helped me get out of a lot of debt. But I still got some debt, but it's not serious. But I will get rid of it through the business I'm doing, I'm sure. But I can't visit her because of the coronavirus. I used to visit her every day for an hour, sing hymns with her and everything, and now I can't visit her. So yeah. Anyhow, that's what's going on. I won't keep you, but.
Okay, well, good to hear your voice and.
Yeah. Likewise, yours.
Keep your spirit healthy and happy, eh?
I sure will, fellow pilgrim.
Okay.
Okay, God bless you.
Bless you.
Okay, bye. John Berkey. Okay. Oh Lord, bless Jim in heaven. I know he's blessed there, and I know he's there. Oh God, bless him, Lord. Hallelujah. Dear brother Jim is in glory with the heavenly hosts. That's so wonderful. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, hallelujah. I think he was excited about going to heaven. I can tell he was. Dennis told me, wow. I gotta think about that a bit. I may as well put this lamp on because it's far better than any other lamp. Anyhow, it might be a bit too bright. I could put the brightness down. I could do that. It's really nice. It keeps everything nice and bright. I like that. I could put it down a bit. I don't have to have it that bright. Maybe I should put it down a bit. Well, yeah, it's a bit bright. It is a bit bright. Anyhow, why don't we turn it off? It's going to get bright pretty fast. I'm thinking of just maybe turning some of those light bulbs on. I'm not sure if I need to, but I could do that. What do you think? Maybe turn this one off for now. That's a really powerful light. It's going to get the color. That'll make it less bright. You know what? That seems brighter than the one with... Okay. Then what we should do is turn the white ones off and turn that one on. The white ones are brighter than the other one, I think. See what that's like. That might be better. That's better. That's not too bright. That's about right. When it's like that, it's just nice. It doesn't look like it's too bright at all. Okay, where are we at here? Okay, it's not this one. It's another one. It's 96% uploaded, thank God. It's crazy that I allowed that thing to be that long in its process. Well, that'll be done pretty soon. Well, after that, it still has to go through the process of doing a lot of other stuff. So let's get doing other things in the meantime. What do you want me to be doing, Laura? I want to create the email to send out to people, and I have to look at my email too. what's this down here going on? Why is it showing there's all that yet? I don't know. Better go down here and see what's in here. Maybe it hasn't downloaded there yet. I guess that's finished, so you should what that was about. he's not on anywhere, so that's fine. Oh, that's really old. That's not the right one. He's in Gloria. These things don't matter much. Looks like his name is Robert James Dawson instead of Jim Dawson. I wonder, that must be him. Oh well, there's not much there, Lord. I don't see much. I don't think this is going to do much more. Oh, okay. No, there's not much there. Okay. No, that's it. There's nothing else to see. He's in Glory anyhow. What does this matter? It matters nothing. Just thought I'd check in case there was connections with others. Okay, I guess he wasn't active on Facebook, so that's fine.